Welcome back, everybody. This Week in America, coast to coast and online at thisweekinamerica.us. The Gift of Sobriety, A Spiritual Transformation by Rose B. is a spiritual memoir about one woman's descent into alcoholism and her eventual recovery by getting involved in Alcoholics Anonymous and integrating spirituality into her journey towards sobriety. The book chronicles her gradual spiritual transformation from the first day she walked into an AA meeting until 9 months later. Her journey from feeling totally broken to a life of renewal and hope. Rose's account is meaningful to anyone who may have a deep spiritual longing. Rose has spent her life learning, teaching, and analyzing data, a BA in psychology, MA in counseling, DDD in quantitative methods, and a PhD in integral energy medicine, working for 30 years at a campus in the California State University system, and now the author of The Gift of Sobriety, A Spiritual Transformation, Rose B., our guest on This Week in America. Hi, Rose. Welcome to the program. It's great to have you with us.
Thank you, Rick. I'm delighted to be here today.
Looking forward to this conversation, and it's interesting in talking about the motivation, the inspiration for the book. I understand this basically what started as a journal for yourself and now is helping other people along the way. How did this actually begin?
Well, it began in AA. We share our story. When someone asked me to share one day, I shared, and people seemed interested. And I realized I was changing, and I wanted to keep a record of what I was feeling and thinking. I've oftentimes kept a journal because I knew I was changing. I wanted to be able to look back and understand how I had changed. So at first it was a personal journal, and then I started talking to some people about it. They said, "Oh, that sounds so interesting. I'd love to read it." So I shared it with a couple of people, and then actually it's an interesting thing I experienced. I was talking to my sponsee one day, that's the person we work with, and I said, we were talking about fear. And I said, well, let me share with you my biggest fear when I came into AA was that my life would have no meaning anymore. I would have no way of giving back to society. But I don't worry about that anymore. And then I came home, and the phone rang, and it was a person I didn't know. And he said, "Hi, I'm from Reader's Magnet, and I'm interested in publishing your first book." I said, "No, that was in the past. I'm done with that. But, I'm working on one. Would you be interested in that?" And he said, "Sure." And I said, "Well, okay, I'll call you back in 3 months." So that's how it happened. I felt led to write this book and share it with the world in the spirit of service.
Yeah, it's amazing how sometimes things fall into place, isn't it? Where all of a sudden it's sort of destiny, where you were to write this and to help other people. Rose B., with us on the program, you chose to use a pseudonym for the book. Why did you decide to do that, to go about it that way?
Sure. This was a precedent established with the authors of Alcoholics Anonymous. That was Bill W., Dr. Bob, and the first 100 men and women in AA. At the time, as is today, I believe, there was a stigma against alcoholics based upon ignorance and not understanding. It was thought to be a characteristic of low character, a low self-will, not able to control one's behavior. But nowadays, we understand it's a disease. It's a disease that's an allergy of the body. Certainly there is an emotional and spiritual and psychological component. But just like someone doesn't decide to be diabetic, someone doesn't decide to be an alcoholic. There is a genetic predisposition. But if one is an alcoholic, they cross an invisible line where they no longer have control of drinking, and it's in that broken state that I walked into AA one day seeking help.
And that's, the story is told in the book, The Gift of Sobriety, A Spiritual Transformation by Rose B., our guest on the program. You'll find the book at Amazon, the usual places, mention Reader's Magnet. You get some information there as well. All those links at our website, thisweekinamerica.us. The beginning of the book, you say, "My name is Rose and I'm an alcoholic. I understand that now, but didn't know that for a long time." When did you come to the realization that I need to reach out to somebody and to seek that help? I'm sure a lot of people go through that, the realization, I'm not being able to fight this on my own. When did you decide I need to reach out and to seek help?
Well, for me, I was 67 years old, and what was happening was I was retired and was having a wonderful life with my partner and wife of 20 years, Leslie. But then she was diagnosed with cancer and passed away. And that was devastating to me, absolutely devastating to me. And I started drinking more, not realizing that it was exacerbating my existing depression. In grief, depression is a common experience. And I ended up, trying to kill myself several times, in and out of short stays in psychiatric hospitals, not understanding what was happening to me. I'd been a very successful career woman. I didn't understand what was happening, and I finally said one day to my husband and a neighbor, I need help. And we went to the ER again, and I ended up in a crisis unit, and at 2 a.m. the intake counselor came in, and he said he'd talked to my husband and seen my records, and he said, do you think you're an alcoholic? I said, well, no, I don't think so, because every time I get into trouble with alcohol, I quit for a while. He said, well, you are. And I said, well, how could you possibly know that? You just met me. He said, well, looking at your history, your face is all blotchy, which I now know was an indication my body was not digesting the alcohol, was not breaking it down. And your blood alcohol level is 0.29. And I'm so naive. I said, is that high? I mean, I knew it was over the limit. And he said, oh, yeah, it's very, very high. I said, well, I'm feeling a little embarrassed, but what do I do about it? So we laid out a plan, and that included going to AA and getting a sponsor, and that was the beginning of my recovery. I want to stress that if someone is feeling broken, it is a wonderful place to be. It doesn't feel wonderful, but that is the attitude one has to be open to receive guidance and help from friends in AA and your higher power. I believe that at that moment when I said I need help, I surrendered my will, and my higher power heard it. I finally said, I give up.
I want to talk about that process. The book we're talking about is The Gift of Sobriety, A Spiritual Transformation by Rose B., our guest on the program. In fact, you've got a chapter in the book about it. It's called You Don't Do It Alone. Talk about that aspect of it, because it's a we, not an I situation to deal with this problem, isn't it?
Absolutely it is. And in the beginning, that higher power for a lot of people is the group of people in AA. Certainly I turned my will over to my sponsor. I said, what do I do? And she said, well, call me every day. We'll meet once a week and read the big book and go through the steps together. But my personal experience was I came home that night after the first meeting, and I started to try to go to sleep. I felt myself falling into that pit of depression again, so I called her. I said, I know you said I could call any time. I'm sorry to be calling already, but what do I do about this? She said, well, say the third step prayer, which is the prayer where we turn our will and our lives over to God. So I said that. It's a little bit longer than that, on page 63 of the big book. And I felt the depression lift. And I went, oh, my goodness. So AA is a spiritual path. It's not passive. It's active. You need to work the principles, apply them to your daily life, and grow gradually more and more in contact with your higher power, however you define that to be.
That's interesting that you can define your higher power. So often people will think of, many people at least will think of this AA as a Christian organization, and you point out that that's not the case.
No, that's not the case. We do not talk about religion or politics. That's none of our business. It's for an individual to choose for themselves. And by the way, AA is a choice also, and we say to people oftentimes, they come in, they go, well, I don't know if this will work. And we say, that's fine, try it for a year. And If at the end of the year you want to go back out, you want your old life of misery and suffering, you can choose it. We're not here telling you what to do. We're saying, this is what worked for me, and would love to help you learn to love yourself.
Talk about the social aspect of AA. I'm sure for some people, they're anxious in a situation like that. Talk about that and the fact that obviously you went in and you felt comfortable, you felt at home with these people. I'm thinking some people would be intimidated by that, going in, opening up to a group of total strangers.
Oh, well, I didn't feel comfortable when I walked in the door. I felt broken, humiliated, embarrassed, afraid, and most people do, because you come into AA as a last resort. But I was amazed. Even my first meeting, people were welcoming me, giving me a hug, saying, welcome, we're glad you're here. Here's some information you might want to read. And so I gradually learned to trust the people in the room and to feel comfortable to share what I was experiencing. If I had questions or doubts or self-revelations, whatever I felt I needed to talk about that day, I can. And it's just so freeing. It's also wonderful to be around people who are talking about real issues, nothing superficial. I mean, you can talk to people, but really we're there to help ourselves and help others, and that's a very deep process. I describe it in my book with different chapters having different topics like surrender or whatever.
Well, yes, and you'll find that all in the book, The Gift of Sobriety, A Spiritual Transformation by Rose B., our guest in the program. You mentioned before the role of sponsor. Talk about that and how important it is, that relationship between yourself and your sponsor, and how a sponsor is chosen.
Okay, well, the relationship is a sacred contract between you and another person. For me, I chose the woman who was leading the meeting the first day. I liked her feelings. It was a wonderful choice for me to make. Other people ponder it for a couple of months, trying to see if someone is telling their story or they can relate to someone. But the relationship is like mentor to mentee. The sponsor shares their experience with AA. You go through the big book together, you read it, you learn what they understand it to mean, and then you share whatever you need to share. When you go through the 12 steps, it's a path of self-understanding. So you need to be honest with yourself and another human being about everything you've done, which takes immense trust. So it's a safe person to talk to, and then as you get honest with yourself, then you might realize you want to make some amends to people, and it's a wonderful, wonderful, sacred relationship.
In the book, it's called The Gift of Sobriety, A Spiritual Transformation. How does spirituality impact sobriety?
Well, sobriety is about spirituality. Let me see how to answer that.
So there is a correlation between the two. Spirituality is a very important part of this.
I think what I want to say to respond to that is Emmett Fox wrote a book, Sermon on the Mount, and he says mystics have used the word serenity to refer to the fundamental tranquility of the soul. That's what we're talking about, getting down to the fundamental tranquility of the soul through the meetings, through talking with your sponsor, through prayer, through meditation, getting in touch with your inner core. That's where peace lies.
With us on the program, yes, is Rose B., author of the book, The Gift of Sobriety, A Spiritual Transformation. Books available at Amazon, the usual places, Reader's Magnet. You can also go to our website, thisweekinamerica.us, and link on directly to get more information. Among the chapters in the book, one is a progressive disease. Talk about that aspect of alcoholism and the journey you went through.
Yes, very important. Alcoholism, if you're an alcoholic, then the disease is progressive, which means it gets worse over time. It gets worse over time whether you're drinking or not. So that means if you're going along in your lifeline, which is, horizontal, and then you start dropping down with some negative consequences. You go, oh, I'm going to stop drinking, and then you go back up to your lifeline. That trajectory of your negative consequences keeps dropping down, so that if you pick up again, you're going to pick up at a place worse than when you dropped off. It's astonishing for those who do relapse. They go, oh my gosh, it was so much worse so quickly this time. So that's what I mean by progressive.
Another chapter is entitled, It's My Disease Talking. Talk about, again, that aspect of it when the disease is there and you're aware of it.
Yes, there's a friend in the program. I love what he says. He says, while I'm in the meeting getting stronger, my disease is out in the parking lot doing push-ups. What it means is that there is this thinking that goes along with it's the compulsion of the mind for ease and comfort that comes with the first couple of drinks. And that's programmed in our minds. And then when trouble comes up, we go, oh, I could just have a drink and then I'd be okay. But what we say in AA is what gets you drunk is your first drink, because once you get that in your body, then the craving, the physical craving starts, and then you're off and running. So so whenever my mind starts telling me, oh, I just need to have a drink and I'll feel better, that's my disease talking.
Another chapter is My Private Safe Place. Talk about that and the importance, obviously, of having that.
Yes. Well, actually, my therapist asked me to write about that because I was trying to describe it to her, that I've always had a place inside of me that I retreat to. It's not a place of depression or sadness. It's a place of peace where I get away from the striving that I might feel within my own personality, or I might feel that society is placing on me. It's a place of rest, and that's where I go to in meditation.
What do you hope people take away from reading the book, The Gift of Sobriety? And what kind of feedback are you getting? How are you touching people?
People are telling me it's powerful. They're telling me that it is credible and believable and gives them hope. I hope people will understand that alcoholism is a disease. It's nothing to be ashamed of, that there's help out there, people who want very much to help you learn to live a meaningful, peaceful, joyous life.
At the
without
beginning,
alcohol or drugs.
Yes, and you do an excellent job of going through, explaining what you went through, and it's very relatable to people who were going through the same things and looking for the answers they find in this journey. The book is The Gift of Sobriety, A Spiritual Transformation. Rose B., our guest on the program. A couple minutes left. We started by talking about you getting the phone call from Reader's Magnet, which propelled you to writing this book. What's this experience been like in working with Reader's Magnet?
Oh, it's been wonderful. They're so supportive and helpful. I'm an introvert, so I don't know anything about marketing or publishing. So they've helped me, and there are a few things I need to mention. I will be in Miami November 17th for a book signing, 12:30 to 1:30 p.m. The book is an official candidate for the Eric Hoffer Award and the Pacific Book Award.
Oh, fantastic.
It will be in Publishers Weekly magazine. I have a website, rosebbooks.com, and Reader's Magnet has, as I said before, been extremely helpful.
That is, congratulations on the success. The book is really poised now to help a lot of people. That has to feel a sense of gratitude. In fact, that's, I think, the final chapter in the book talking about gratitude, the fact that you were able to spread this message and help other people.
Yes, I am extremely grateful for sobriety. It is a gift to me. I totally believe that. It was so natural and easy for me to write the book. It felt like it just came through me.
The book is
I
called,
hope it helps people.
I'm certain that it is and will continue to do that, and best of luck with all the recognition for the success of the book. The book is called The Gift of Sobriety, A Spiritual Transformation. Rose B. has been our guest on the program. Information at Reader's Magnet. You'll find the book at Amazon. Is the website up and running, or is that still in?
It is.
Ooh, fantastic.
It is up and running.
Rose B.
Capital
Books.
R, rosebooks.com.
That is perfect, and we'll have that information as well at our website, so you can get that information, link onto that, get all the information on the book. Rose, this has been a pleasure having you on the program. Thank you so much for sharing your story and helping other people. It's been a pleasure having you with us.
It's been a pleasure talking with you, Rick. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. And once again, the name of the book, The Gift of Sobriety, A Spiritual Transformation by Rose B. The website is rosebooks.com. You can link onto that by going to our website, thisweekinamerica.us. Back on today's program right after these messages.
God bless